At long last, it's time for me to start covering the lore of FateGrand Order. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Now that the North American release of FGO has concluded its Solomon arc, I want to take this time to provide a comprehensive overview of exactly what the hell has been going on. When you play a game over the span of nearly 2 years, it's easy to lose track of things, so think of this as another layman's terms, no bullshit guide to the whole first arc. This will be a multi-part series, loaded with spoilers, so if you haven't finished the Orleans Singularity, get on that first. Now, let's talk about FateGrand Order as a concept. The game was announced as a mobile game based on the franchise, but I don't think fans realized back then just how big it would become. It's essentially become the main work in the Nasuverse, eclipsing all the others, not just because of its profitability, but also because it serves as a giant crossover for all the servants, ideas, and stories we've come to love from Fate's various incarnations. Primarily, FGO is another of Fate's alternative timelines, like Stay Night in Apocrypha, though it does include a lot of overlap. The whole incineration of humanity thing doesn't apply to Stay Night's events, for instance. Shiro and Artoria do get their happy ending in the Fate route, so not everything good is undone. After all, it would suck if FGO undermined all the meaning found in previous works. FGO's timeline is comprehensive, including elements from everything seen in Fate thus far. You've got a version of Altera coming from outer space to Earth as a giant titan, ravaging the Earth and fighting the gods until being defeated by Excalibur. This was a huge turning point in the end of the Age of Gods that used to be a plot element of Fate Extra, but now has its own version here. Another blow to the Age of Gods occurred with Solomon, a master of magecraft, referred to as the King of Magic. He lived between 1011 and 931 BC as a king in Israel. He was gifted from birth with profound clairvoyance, unable to live a normal life. God granted him true wisdom, which manifested in 10 rings on his fingers. In life, he summoned 72 demon gods as his familiars. He also discovered that magecraft could be used by commoners who aren't affiliated with gods. Nifty. When he died, it dramatically hastened the end of the Age of Gods. Before dying, however, he sent one of his 10 rings far into the future, which becomes important later. More importantly, though, his deceased body became the host for the demon gods, who combine to form a hive mind, Goetia. In life, Solomon had entrusted the demon gods to protect humans, an order called the Human Order Correction Ritual. Yet there was a conflict of opinion. Solomon loved humanity and accepted them for their imperfections, including death. Goetia, on the other hand, could not overlook humanity's flaws, their mortality, their penchant for war and propagation of suffering, and instead wished to perfect humanity. This deviation changed Solomon's wishes into the Human Order Incineration Ritual. The aggregate of demon gods, Goetia, became the beast-class servant, Beast 1. Okay, more new terminology incoming. What the flipping fuck is a beast-class servant? It's honestly really philosophical and nutty, but essentially, there are 7 beasts that are born from mankind's inherent evil. After all, gods were born from human worship, so it's not surprising to think that beasts could emerge as a result of human evil. Their existence is actually the main reason the Throne of Heroes exists, as there are 7 grand classes of heroic spirits specifically designed to counter these 7 beasts. We get to know the identities of 4 of the beasts in FGO, but let's leave a little for Nasu to surprise us with in the future. With its own will, Goetia wished to correct mankind's imperfections by reaching the origin of the world and recreating it without his perceived flaws. In other words, Goetia would time travel back to the very beginning of it all and restart human history with a superior design. This required fuel, however, and the Earth itself lacked the mana needed. What he could harness as fuel were humans themselves. Since he wanted to restart humanity anyway, he could absorb the mana of all humans throughout history as heat energy. This is what we refer to as the incineration of humanity. To accomplish this, Goetia arranged for its 72 demon gods to manifest within certain mage bloodlines throughout history. Basically, over the next 3,000 years, designated mages would have their minds wiped and become the various demon gods, serving as nodes in human history to be harvested as fuel for Goetia's noble phantasm, Ars Almadel Salomonis. This crazy ritual is the cause of the giant ring in the sky we see motifed all throughout FateGrand Order. It is literally the gathering and incineration of human history. Also, as part of this crazy ritual, Goetia created and released 7 holy grails into points of human history that would activate at the time of incineration, preserving his ambition in the form of singularities, distortions in the foundation of history. As cool as this sounds, it's gonna take a while, so Goetia must be pretty patient. He waits these 3,000 years out in his own singularity, the Grand Temple of Time. In the modern era, we've got this ambitious magus called Marisbury Animus Fear. He established an organization called Chaldea that he wanted to use to protect the existence of humanity, utilizing the planet's will, Alaya, the part that branched off to prioritize humans. His organization built a device called Chaldeas, which is a miniature replica of the Earth that can be used to observe Earth's past and future. One of his colleagues in Chaldea was a hard-working mage named Lev Liner. Sadly for Marisbury, this guy happened to be the final mage containing the essence of the demon god Flauros, and would ultimately become Flauros at a designated time, which, for the Japanese version anyway, was the year 2015. In fact, Flauros' awakening was the trigger to initiate the incineration. Prior to that, though, he built a device called Sheba, which was an actual lens used to observe Chaldeas. Only with these two systems working in tandem could Chaldea read into the world's past and future. Now, this is some high-concept sci-fi here, as Chaldeas was created using what are called spiritron particles, a type of quantum particle that make up the soul. Anyway, there's only one issue. Operating Chaldeas required a ton of energy. Marisbury obtained power plants and nuclear reactors, but still couldn't keep it running. To procure the funds and resources he needed, he decided to wish upon Fuyuki's Holy Grail for more wealth. Thus, he entered into the timeline's first and only Fuyuki Holy Grail War. The Ainsburns created the Greater Grail to obtain Heaven's Feel, like usual, but Marisbury didn't care for that. He just wanted all that sweet mana to grant his wish. This was the year 2004, so why the hell was this the very first Holy Grail War? In the Stainite timeline, this would have been the 5th Grail War. Well, on this timeline, the Ainsburns were willing to bide their time and perfect their homunculi before starting the ritual. Marisbury summoned his own servant using a third system from Chaldea, called the Fate system. It was a very unstable system that usually resulted in failure, but through persistence, Marisbury succeeded in summoning our buddy Solomon, since he was the one who recovered Solomon's ring. Together, they won the war, each making their wish on the Grail. Marisbury got the big paycheck he always wanted, while Solomon wished to experience real humanity. You see, Solomon was considered special from the very day he was born, a divine child who always had to consider the will of God and his people. Essentially, he never got to live a normal life, and so he wished to be reborn again without divinity or magic circuits. The Grail granted his wish, transforming his body into that of a normal human. Out of adoration for the word romance, he named himself Romani Archiman. Sadly for Roman, the instant he became human, his clairvoyance gave him one last vision of the future, depicting humanity's destruction. He had the vision, but no idea how, why, or when this destruction would take place. Thus, rather than living a peaceful life, Roman dedicated himself to research as a medical specialist. He became buds with Marisbury and Lev, and joined Chaldea as a doctor by the age of 22. So yeah, Solomon turned Roman was actually a pretty good guy, but he was also a coward who feared the end of the world. He never told anyone he used to be the king of mages, so the secret dies with Marisbury. Regardless, Chaldea kicked into high gear with the knowledge that humanity certainly would perish. A big part of Chaldea's research had to do with summoning heroic spirits. After all, the planet's will to protect humanity, Alaya, did so by calling upon heroes recorded into the Throne of Heroes to serve as counter-guardians. Chaldea was hoping to do the very same thing. As I mentioned before though, Chaldea's summoning system was unstable, and testing it required a lot of mages to essentially be sacrificed to improve the tech. These failed master candidates were discarded in Seraphics, an oil rig in the North Sea, which is pretty damn gruesome. Rather than gathering a bunch of already existing masters, Chaldea decided to create their own. They genetically altered the birthing process so that the children of even non-mages could be born with magic circuits. The results of these births were the designer babies. One of these designer babies was our beloved Kohai, Mashu Kyrielite. Chaldea thought they'd have more success creating demi-servants instead of just calling upon heroic spirits. Their goal then was to infuse the essence and abilities of a heroic spirit into the body of a human. Among many designer babies, Mashu wound up being the first success. Kinda. They managed to summon the heroic spirit of Galahad into her. They succeeded on that front, but Galahad didn't awaken within Mashu, refusing because Chaldea's experiments were far too brutal. Regardless, to keep Mashu alive, Galahad remained dormant within her. Tragically, it would seem that Mashu, being a designer baby, was created with a set lifespan, an issue that plagues most artificial life forms, including homunculi. Essentially, Mashu is set to die at the age of 18, eternally jailbait. When we actually start playing the game, Mashu is 16 and will inevitably die in 2 more years at most, according to Romani. No! Chaldea expanded its approach after that, allowing for more traditional master-servant pacts to take place. They moved on to summon none other than Leonardo da Vinci as a heroic spirit, manifesting as his preferred female form. She found herself fascinated by Chaldea and decided to stick around using a puppet she made to serve as her master, kinda like Toko Aozaki in Kara no Kyokai. Thus, in most circumstances, she was only able to manifest within Chaldea's headquarters in Antarctica. Only if she contracts with a proper master can she actually go out and fight. Either way, Da Vinci is a great asset to Chaldea, and because she's so smart, she figured out that Romani used to be heroic spirit Solomon. The two decide to keep this a secret, since they don't want any potential enemies to learn about Romani's identity. Can you believe it? We're almost ready to talk about the base story of FateGrand Order. There are just a few things to consider. Marisbury Animus Fear died, but it's heavily implied he was killed, and his killer made it look like a suicide. His daughter, Olga Marie Animus Fear, took over as the head of Chaldea, but due to information being designated as classified, she wasn't properly prepared. Regardless, the Animus Fear family had a prestigious reputation within the clock tower, and Olga inherited that prestige. Even so, after taking over for her father, she learned of the inhumane experiments Chaldea had conducted, causing her to have a nervous breakdown. She becomes anorexic for a month from the shock alone. Just looking at Mashu terrified her, and she feared that Mashu may kill her in retaliation. Despite being of high rank in the clock tower, she herself was considered incompatible as a master for Chaldea. Instead, she served as the director, relying on Lev Liner as a trusted figure of authority, which, if you've been paying attention, was a bad thing. Recall that I mentioned before that FGO isn't part of the same timeline as Stay Night, and the incineration doesn't happen in those stories. On those timelines, Marisbury didn't participate in the Grail Wars. Lev discovered he was going to awaken as the demon god Flauros, and managed to kill himself to prevent it. Good Levricon. Apparently, doing this one thing managed to completely foil Goetia's plan to destroy humanity. But this is FGO and that didn't happen. Instead, just as Goetia wished, the final demon god awakened within Lev, and the plan to eliminate humanity resumed. Goetia's 7 grails activated, creating 7 singularities to serve as detonation points. Chaldea was able to pick up on this and determine that humanity's future would end in the year 2016. Suitably, Chaldea prepared to send masters and servants into the past to correct these singularities. They do this via rayshift technology, which involves sending the souls of masters and servants into the past. To improve the success of these dangerous time leaps, Chaldean masters board tubes called coffins, which shut off in the event that a rayshift is likely to fail. Chaldea assembled an army of mages to assist in this endeavor, even posting recruitment posters to fill the ranks more quickly. Our protagonist, Ritsuka Fujimaru, was an unimpressive mage who happened to find one of these posters and joined Chaldea on a whim. Ritsuka befriended Mashu and Chaldea's fluffy pet foe, who I'll get to in a later video. Ironically, Ritsuka's ineptitude set them up to be one of the only survivors Chaldea had against Lev Liner as he betrayed the organization, sabotaging all the other mage candidates by caving in the ceiling on their coffins prior to a massive ray shift. Their prospective masters are frozen in their coffins. Ritsuka finds Mashu crushed underneath the rubble and holds her hand as they count down to ray shift. Clearly, this is a fatal wound for Mashu, but Galahad decides to finally awaken within her in order to save her life. The two successfully ray shift to Singularity F, the year 2004, in Fuyuki, Japan. Olga's with them too, but only in mind. Lev used bombs to cause the catastrophe, and Olga's body was destroyed in the explosion. Essentially, while her mind successfully ray shifted, her body was already dead, and thus cannot return home to her own time. To clarify, singularities are unobservable points in human history, often caused by one of Goetia's grails drastically interfering with the flow of events. In this case, we're taken back to the Fuyuki Holy Grail War that Marisbury once won. Only now, all the humans are dead, and the servants are running amok. Ritsuka arrives as the only living master, contracted with Mashu as their demi-servant. She takes a form inspired by Galahad and his massive shield, built from the remnants of the Round Table itself. Unfortunately, Mashu doesn't know the identity of the spirit keeping her alive, nor the name of her noble phantasm. Thus, Ritsuka and Mashu are inexperienced, learning the ropes of combat with the help of our boy Cuchulainn, now summoned as a caster. When a Holy Grail is inserted into history, it often summons a bunch of heroic spirits who exist without masters, and Ku is one of these. Anyway, they journey through the Singularity and arrive at the core of Mount Enzo, where the Greater Grail is. There, they find out that Lev Liner betrayed them and that the incineration is inevitable. He shows them Chaldeas, now enveloped in red flames, and cruelly drags Olga into its core, where she dissolves on a molecular scale. Damn, dude, that's fucking harsh. Regardless, Ritsuka and Mashu resolve the Singularity and are returned to Chaldea. Mashu's okay now thanks to Galahad's awakening, but there's a much larger issue. Chaldea's staff was decimated, forcing Romani to step up as the director. The survivors gather together, knowing that they must save humanity by ray-shifting to other singularities and recovering the Holy Grails Solomon, or should I say Goetia, implanted in them. Doing so will restore the foundation of human history and ideally prevent humanity's incineration. They call this mission the Grand Order. As part of this overview for the first arc of FateGrand Order, I'll be covering each respective singularity in its own video, so look forward to that in the future. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe to OtakuDaiKun for more anime lists, reviews, discussions, lore videos, live streams, and the Holy Waifu Wars. If you're interested in seeing this channel grow, please consider becoming a patron or donating in a super chat during any of my weekly live streams. Also, feel free to check the description for my social media profiles, including an ever-growing Discord full of fans of anime and the Fate series. Until next time, celebrate your fandom.